In 1904, a mysterious incident was reported where a room full of frozen people was found in the middle of July. There was a weird chant being played on the recorder, and a golden orb in one of the guards' hands suddenly opened. Fast forward to the present times, a fancy car is running down the road with the Spengler family and Gary. A sewer dragon is wandering around from the sewage system of the city. Other than this weird family arguing over their barely functioning car, their ages, Trevor and Phoebe not listening to their mom, Callie, and Gary just being a chill dude enjoying skimming his way through the traffic. Since the windows are stuck, Phoebe decides to open the door and pull out the chair that they have designed for this job. Just not for Phoebe to do it. Even though she is 15, this girl sure knows how to sound cool and how to use the nuclear accelerator to capture the dragon in their hold. While she does that, a robot is sent out to suck the dragon into captivity, but the flying thing is hard to catch from the road. They then decide to use the drone and eventually succeed in capturing the dragon. The downside of this is that the car ends up in an accident over the bicycle rack, and the mayor isn't very fond of them due to the damage they cause to the city. With Phoebe being 15, he specifically has her sit down till she turns 18 to be a part of this job. Gary tries to convince the mayor about Phoebe's talents, but he is not her biological father, nor does he pay her, so he has practically no say in this. Back at home, which is an old fire safety building, Phoebe is ranting about missing out on the mission she chose for her life for 3 years, but Gary and Callie convince her to live as a normal teenager in the meantime. Gary used to be their teacher when he met Callie and fell for her, and now instead of pursuing his knowledge of seismology, bro is a ghostbuster. Callie wants him to be a little more assertive like any other father is, but Gary isn't sure if it is his place yet. As they put the captured ghost in the ghost containment in the building, it acts up a little, suggesting that it might have been overfilled by now. Gary and Callie push it together to manage to turn the light green. Dr. Raymond Stantz is recording a vlog with podcast. This happens to be the name of a kid. They are measuring the spiritual energies in inanimate objects that people bring to them, and podcast seems to enjoy breaking stuff with no energy using a hammer, as this gets him views. Phoebe visits Ray to hand him some slime for his test when she sees little mushroom-like ghosts wandering around the table that Ray smuggled from Somerville. They seem to be increasing in number by mating and doing whatever around the room. On the other hand, a guy, Nadim, visits Ray's store with some antique pieces he wants to sell. The pieces belong to his grandmother, and they do possess spiritual energy. One last thing he brings out is the gold orb that was seen in 1904 before. Ray can tell that the brass used for this orb has been designed to trap evil spirits. The orb has such a strong energy that it shakes up the room, and the energy goes far enough to crack the walls of the ghost container at the Spenglers' residence. What is weird is that the notorious little ghosts around Phoebe and Podcast start hiding away too. Nadim doesn't seem to care more than the fact that he got paid more than he expected. Gary calls a lady, Janine, who tells him they have been feeding ghosts to this container since 1984, so that might be the reason behind the cracks. She plans on sending Winston's engineers to look into it, but is not interested in giving details to Gary. Trevor's ceiling is always leaking, but when he pokes his finder through a weirdly leaking hole, some slimy stuff lands on his hands. He goes to Callie to tell her about something being in the attic, but Callie reminds him he is an adult who can take care of things himself. Taking the accelerator, Trevor goes into the attic and finds a green, slimy monster from under a pile of wrappers of junk food. Before Trevor can do anything, it runs away through Trevor, leaving a great deal of slime on him. When they are called to bust a ghost, Phoebe is dejected to see that the family actually didn't take her. Bored, she goes to a park and sets up a chessboard to play alone when the opposite pieces start moving on their own. Phoebe decides to play along till a young girl's ghost appears in front of her with a very calm and sarcastic boo. Phoebe casually greets her, confusing the poor ghost as she expects people to run off by now. Phoebe is polite enough to offer leaving if that's what she wants, but the girl keeps playing chess with her. As Phoebe loses in chess, she gets to know that Melody burned to death in a fire when she was 16, hence the pretty flames around her. She tells Phoebe that the worst part about being a ghost is that she will be 16 forever, and the best part is that she can do this whenever she wants. With that dramatic line, Melody just vanishes. Lars visits the containment the next day but shows annoyance at Gary's excessive questions. The sudden banging on the containment ensures everyone at the space is full and many things are trying to come out now. Janine, Lars, and Winston discuss the space being full and how they were already ahead with a solution as they have built a new system to store the ghost now. They explain that this firehouse is the containment because it carries the gateway to the other side. the side nobody knows about. Winston takes them to the ghost-busting research center created in a closed aquarium building. Trevor meets his friend Lucky, who is interning at the most interesting place right now. Winston shows them how they take different objects carrying the spirits and put them into a machine that extracts the spirits out of them. Once done, the spirits are then trapped and put into the containments designed by Callie's late father. It's going to take them around 7 to 9 years to move the ghosts from the firehouse to here. Ray has also brought the orb and hands it to Lucky, telling her it broke the psychokinetic meter, so good luck to them in extracting what it holds. Phoebe wanders around and sees different ghosts trapped in different rooms using proton barriers, so they can study them while keeping them trapped. There is a possessor ghost, which is like a tiny dot of light and keeps switching between inanimate objects to control and move them. At night, Gary is trying to console Phoebe that time will fly by soon, but he is called for an emergency to leave. As they all leave, the phone rings, leaving Phoebe to deal with it. Somebody calls for help, so Phoebe decides to take Podcast along with her. Lucky and Lars try to extract the spirit out of the orb, but the high energy leads to the power of the place going down for a moment. This means that the proton barriers have stopped working, and the ghosts can escape in the time span till the power comes back. Luckily, it comes back before things get out of hand. Lars knows they need to shut that thing for now, but the moment he touches it, his hand starts freezing, making him drop it moments before he could have lost his arm. The two of them reach a diner where the waitress calmly points to a booth. Walking there, Phoebe is shocked to see Melody sitting there. Podcast tells her to attack it, but Phoebe misses her aim and Melody disappears. When Phoebe comes back home, she sees Melody floating outside her window. She tells Melody that she has good aims and misses them on purpose. She then invites Melody inside, which is ironic since it's the place where ghosts are trapped. Phoebe shows her around the place till they end up in the basement in front of the containment. Melody asks what happens to them when they leave, so Phoebe tells her that their particles start to lose their bonds and they float off in space to become part of the fabric of the universe. Melody is holding onto a matchbox with only one match, and she wants to go meet her family one day on the other side. She just doesn't know how. As the family comes back, Melody disappears. However, the orb once again sends out icy energy that reaches the firehouse, and Melody, who talks in a weird language, telling the spirit that she is trying to be as fast as possible. It feels like Phoebe is being trapped for something, but Melody low-key didn't want the victim to be Phoebe. The next day, Trevor tries to catch the Fatso ghost by luring it to Cheetos, but is unable to. Callie wakes Phoebe up, asking her to come to the basement and see if she knows what is wrong. The walls around the containment are broken this time. Lars and Lucky show Ray, Trev, and Podcast how the orb is at absolute zero temperature and how it can control other ghosts as well. As Lars is showing by bringing the orb out, the proton barriers glitch again, and the possessor comes out through the cracks in the glass created the previous day. It hides away in Podcast's bag without anybody's notice. Trevor, Lars, and Lucky visit Nadim, who gave Ray the orb. Nadim is even more chill of a dude who thinks his grandma was a little off and shows them her room filled with ancient stuff and surrounded by brass, which gives Lars the idea that the orb was being protected here. Using the psychokinetic meter around the room, Lucky notices it showing strong signals on Nadim, so instead of an object, this whole guy is taken to the lab this time. Phoebe is at Ray's shop when Podcast plays the video he recorded of the orb and hears a weird voice. Ray tells them it is a dead ancient language and there might be a guy who knows them. So this retired Ghostbuster, along with 2 underage Ghostbusters, set out to investigate the matter. Dr. Peter puts sensors on Nadim's head and asks him weird questions. In between, Peter hits Nadim or tries to get on his nerves to see if a beast takes control or not. That doesn't happen, but everyone notices a flame lighting up on one of the burners every time Nadim gets annoyed. Ray takes them to a librarian friend, Hubert, who tells them it is pre-Sanskrit and only about 5 people in the world might know it. Ray then shows Hubert the picture of the orb, making him stand up and take them to the real ancient library in the basement. There he opens up a carved manuscript that matches exactly to this orb. He explains the history of the orb, that it has Garaka, a phantom god trapped in it, because it wanted to conquer humanity by instilling the power to kill by fear itself. The Fire Masters, who happen to be Nadim's family, did this job by taking away its horns and using its vulnerability to fire and brass to trap it and keep it trapped all these years. He then shows them the phonographic recording which carries the chants that can release Garaka from the trap. However, right at this moment, the possessor possesses the recording, lands it in a trash bag, and then rushes away. The four of them follow the bag to capture it, but are unable to do so. When it comes out of library, it is under the lion statue of the library, but the ghost has possessed the lion now. It is about to attack Ray when Phoebe and Podcast manage to use the accelerator on Ray's scooter to destroy it along with the dangerous recording. However, this huge disaster means the three of them are now arrested. Using Phoebe's rebellion as a base, the mayor cancels the Ghostbusters and takes the fireplace into custody. Phoebe still misbehaves with the mayor, and then Callie makes Gary finally break his silence and call her out for being selfish and not noticing that all three of them are trying to protect her. At home, Ray forces Nadim to light the candle without touching the lighter. Nadim doesn't believe he can do that till he notices the flame moving where he moves his hands. Later, Phoebe sneaks out of the house to meet Melody and shares how she feels comfortable around her. Melody doesn't have to do much to manipulate Phoebe into trying a way where she can separate her spirit from her body. Going to the lab, she sits in the chamber, which will take her spirit out of her body for 2 minutes. Big mistake, because the moment she comes out, Garaka takes control of her soul. Melody tells her that Garaka can take her to the other side, but the chant to open the orb has to be in a human voice, which Garaka can take control of if a human spirit separates from its body. Using this control, Garaka breaks the orb and tells Phoebe that humans will perish. When Phoebe gets back to her body, Lucky appears there, attacking Garaka with an accelerator. However, Garaka freezes it useless. The girls are lucky Garaka spared them for now, as it wants to find the Fire Master. Garaka finds Nadim's house and takes his horns back before dooming the entire city into ice-cold weather and rains of ice spears. Everyone gathers at the firehouse with the nuclear packs created at the research lab. However, Phoebe knows that the copper components won't make Garaka even flinch. She gets an idea and brass plates the components of her pack, hoping that she could give them a chance to affect Garaka. All the OG Ghostbusters, including Janine, Ray, Peter, and Winston, also gather to fight this danger. Lucky and Trevor are on the roof when they see a tricycle traveling towards the firehouse. Knowing it is the Possessor, they are called down. The Possessor first breaks the door and then takes over their car to harm them. After that, it takes over Lucky's pack, but Nadim finally gets a hang of controlling the fire and saves them. As the Possessor gets into a pizza, the foodie monster from the attic consumes him, saving them unintentionally. Phoebe confronts Melody in the basement, telling her Garaka can't help her move on, and she has to do it herself, while all others face Garaka on the ground floor. They try to use their packs together at Garaka, but as Lucky warned them before, it doesn't work. Brass-suited Nadim tries to attack him, but the lighter runs out of fluid, so he has no fire to master. They are all cornered to the walls, with icy pines hindering any movement. As they are being frozen, Garaka manages to explode the container and release all the ghosts along with opening the door to the other side. Phoebe gets up and confronts Garaka, attacking him with her brass-coated pack. This hypothesis works, but it isn't strong enough. Luckily, Melody realizes her role with the matchstick and lights it up to give Nadim the power to control it. Luckily, Nadim wasn't frozen due to his brass suit. Phoebe attacks Garaka again while the other Spanglers help her. The OG Ghostbusters go down and collectively make the containment function again, so Garaka is sucked into the containment and trapped again. Just like this, all the Ghostbusters with the Fire Master Nadim manage to save the world from Garaka. Melody's particles float away just like Phoebe had said, finally letting her reach the other side. The Ghostbusters have reclaimed their fame, and the mayor has no choice but to show support for them. However, since the escaped ghosts are still roaming around, the Spanglers don't get any time off. But now, Trevor is finally trusted for driving, and Phoebe has finally accepted Gary as her dad, shifting the chaotic family into a happier and more devoted perspective.